Hi, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I don't know if you guys received Corey's message that he is regrettably going to resign as the board chair because of medical issues, and we really want to thank him for his service to the board and hope that he feels better, and just want to know that he's appreciated. So anyone else want to share any thoughts? I know that everybody feels the same way. We just all wish him well.
I knew
Go ahead, Gene.
I knew from quite a while back that Corey told me he was having a long hauler situation with his bout with COVID. So, and we had chatted a little bit, not recently, but it's unfortunate. It's not a surprise. It's very unfortunate, and I know from hearing on the news these things can go on for months and months and months. So I know we're all sending out our prayers and best wishes for him.
Thanks, Gene. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order officially at 3:02. It looks like we do have a quorum. On my screen, I see Gene Schmitz. Oh, okay. I need to read some things. For those of you who are joining us, you can see on screen a way to register to join the webinar. 2 different web addresses, and the agenda is available. And then for instructions on how to make public comment, there'll be another screen, and I'll read these. If you want to raise your hand for public comment while you're in the webinar in Zoom, click participants, raise hand or lower hand. If you're on an iPhone, you in the webinar in Zoom, you'll click more and raise or lower your hand. And if you're a dial-in phone participant while in the webinar in Zoom, press *9 to raise your hand and press *9 again to lower your hand. You may also leave a voicemail for public comment at 552-6012 or send an email to council@ci.missoula.mt.us. Thanks. Okay, so I was going through the roll call. Gene Schmitz is here. James Walter is here. Jessica Doherty Goodburn. Britt Arnson is here. Kip Beckwith is here. And then we have many, many visitors. Did I forget anyone, or am I not seeing anyone? Okay, I think that is it. So let's see. I guess the first item on the agenda is to approve the previous minutes. And so I wanted to see if anyone had any comments, corrections, or objections to approving the minutes from last meeting. All right, seeing none, we will approve the minutes from last meeting. From my perspective, I can't see any general public that have joined on my end. If anyone else sees anyone, let me know. This is the time when the general public may make comments to the board. All right, seeing none, we're going to move on. What about general board member comments? Please raise your hand if you have any general comments. Okay, let me just double check. Seeing none, we're going to move right on through to comments from city staff. I do know that the bylaws require that we immediately fill a vacated position, and it must be filled by the board at the next regularly scheduled meeting as the first order of business, and it should be filled by a majority vote of the quorum. Upon election under this provision, the board officer shall immediately assume the position. I received Corey's email basically simultaneous to this meeting. And so I feel like addressing it at the next regularly scheduled meeting, I would be comfortable with, meaning not right this second, since I feel like I just saw the message as the meeting was beginning. Does anyone have any objections to that plan? Okay, all right. So at this point, Ben, do you have any comments you'd like to share?
I do have comments, but I'm going to cede my spot to Catherine first,
Okay.
and then I'll go after her.
Oh,
Okay,
cool.
thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense.
Should I just dive in, or do you need to announce the agenda item or anything?
No, it's
Nope, we
part of the
haven't.
same
Okay.
it's staff comments.
Oh.
We're just switching the order of which staff members giving
Cool.
comments first.
Okay, well, I will share my screen if that's okay. So yeah, as Ben mentioned, I'm Catherine. I know most of you. I'm the program director with Missoula in Motion, but I think there are a few new members since I last presented. So yeah, typically we like to come and kind of just give you an update on our programs and the work we do in the community. So yeah, we thought we'd present on our annual report. So I'll dive in. Feel free to jump in if you have any questions. So 2020 annual report. 2020 was certainly a unique year for all of us. So we adapted our programs quite a bit. So we'll get into that. Let me just, okay. All right. So if you're not familiar with what we do, we are dedicated to increasing the use of sustainable transportation here in Missoula. We've been around since 1997, so quite a few years. We're a team of 3, and we are part of the Infrastructure and Mobility Planning Division within the city. So as I said, 2020 certainly was, didn't look like we expected, but we really adapted a lot of our programs to continue to meet community needs when it came to transportation and getting people where they needed to go, while also prioritizing safety, which was a goal for all of us this year. So we, just as kind of an overview of some of the ways that we adapted. So we moved a lot of things, a lot of our programs to be virtual. So, we eliminated in-person events, which was difficult because we do quite a bit of that. And we work with a lot of employers and go to different employers and do presentations. So just kind of learning how to transition, doing a lot of that virtually, and then also providing resources for others that were working virtually. So we did not do our Open Streets event or Sunday Streets Missoula. And we typically get a lot of walk-ins into our office. We help people register their bikes, provide them with safety resources like bike lights. And so we created a system to allow people to fill out request forms online for different resources that we offer. And then we are able to fulfill those requests and then just get packets together and have individuals come and pick them up at City Hall without having to interact with them. There was just kind of a place that they could come pick them up. So yeah, so that's a little snapshot. We worked quite a bit with Mountain Line as well, just to help promote their messaging around the safety protocols that they had, and ensuring people knew what they were doing to maintain safety and educating people on how to follow those protocols. So 2020 was really unexpectedly the year of the telecommute. So we tried to step up and provide as many resources as possible for people that were all of a sudden shifting to remote work without much notice or preparation. So kind of became experts in the different resources available and tried to share those with our community and provided some programming as well. We also wanted to highlight telecommuting as a sustainable mode. It's always counted with all of our programs. It's been considered a sustainable mode, and we offer community incentives that are available for those that do telecommute. So this year, really wanting to highlight that telecommuting can be considered a sustainable transportation option. We're eliminating the trip altogether. And so wanting to reinforce that with folks and with workplaces, and during this time, a lot of us realized that we were able to do jobs remotely that we previously thought would not be possible. So, using that experience to encourage telecommuting in the future. And although we won't be fully shifting to, telecommuting, although some agencies will be, but, I think people will be returning to the offices, but encouraging those to consider continuing to work remote when they can, if that's 2 days a week, that can have a really significant impact on our community-wide congestion and commuting if people are that were previously driving are able to work from home more often. And so some of the specific things we did, we offered a couple of telecommuting webinars. We recruited a national leader in the field to present, and we did a presentation that was not only tailored to employees, but also to managers. Just there are a lot of unique challenges when trying to manage a team remotely and not having that in-person interaction. We also hosted a virtual workplace partner breakfast focused on telecommuting. So that was really an opportunity for peers to share what their organization was doing around telecommuting and what were share best practices and kind of creating a space for people to share some ideas of things that worked for their organizations that others can learn from. And we also created a toolkit that's available online. So some of these things we've continued. Our virtual workplace breakfasts are continuing into this year, and we've had really great attendance. We have one coming up next week that Ben is actually presenting on. So those are something that have continued. Our Way to Go Missoula program, we provide incentives for those who log sustainable commutes and errands all year round. We partner with different local businesses to get donations to offer these small little rewards every month. So that was certainly a challenge in 2020. So we did put the incentives on hold for a couple of months, but we still were able to get quite a few partners on board to offer incentives, and with the goal of encouraging people to support their businesses during this challenging time for local businesses. And this graph here is pretty interesting. So it shows the different modes that people logged with our Way to Go Missoula website. So in blue, you see the trips divided up by mode for 2019. And so you can see the majority of them are bike trips. We have a lot of avid sustainable commuters that log that are bikers. And then the rest are kind of dispersed. And then as you can see in 2020, that's in green. So you can see that telecommuting went up significantly and was even higher than our number of biking trips. So just seeing that shift, continuing to engage with our community and encouraging them to log those sustainable trips, even if they are just working from home. We work with a lot of employers to support workplaces, creating cultures that support sustainable commuting and encourage it within a workplace. And so our largest program within our Way to Go for workplaces is the Commuter Challenge. Typically, we run this program in May, and we put it on hold last year and then ended up doing it in September. And again, focusing a lot on telecommuting. A lot of the employers that typically participate had staff working from home. So educating people on COVID safe commuting options, but also working with employers that have essential workers and that were commuting. So we thought the program was a big success. We weren't able to do any of our in-person kickoff party or rewards party, but we were able to provide a couple of pizza parties to the winners that were able to be done outside and in a safe way. These numbers are about just about exactly half of what they were in 2019. So certainly more challenging to engage people around sustainable commuting when people aren't really seeing themselves as commuting, but we felt like it was really successful just even to get 54 employers to engage with us and to participate in the program. We also worked with to do a commuter challenge, and that was in February. The idea is to do it during the time of year when it's the most challenging to commute, but also when parking can be the toughest to find on campus. And so we really promoted the bus and carpooling as well. So that program was really successful, and that was done before COVID. So we still felt safe promoting carpooling. And yeah, we are continuing to work with the university. The goal for last year was to kind of help them run it collaboratively, with the idea that then they could take on the program for future years and run their own commuter challenges. And that's what their commuter challenge is actually going on right now. They moved it back a little bit for this year. So for 2021, they're doing it independently, and we provided some help with the planning and promotion. But so that was kind of exciting to get that up and running, and now they've taken it over. The Commuter of the Year program, we always recognize 2 different individuals who not only incorporate sustainable transportation into their own daily lives, but they also are active in influencing and inspiring the people around them, whether it's at their workplace or just within their neighborhoods or communities. So we found a couple of great individuals to highlight this year, Rachel and Aaron. And then Bike Month. So in the past couple of years, we really have not done much programming around Bike Month. However, we were excited for the opportunity to highlight biking just as a sustainable way to get around and a safe way to get around, and also just to get outside and to recreate during COVID. So, and highlighting the safe routes within our community, especially during a time when there was such low traffic volumes, and encouraging people to get out riding and feel comfortable riding routes during such a low traffic time, with the idea that they then feel a little more confident to do so moving forward and long into the future. So we partnered with many of you. Our Bike Ped members played a huge role in pulling this off, and we did a lot of virtual programming and ways to engage and encourage people to get out and ride on their own, and then provided them with different incentives and challenges and ways to engage with us virtually. So that was an exciting program, and we're excited to do some more around Bike Month this year. The Neighborhood Greenways Network was another kind of exciting project that came out of a difficult situation this year. So we're excited to collaborate with Ben's office and also Public Works and Parks and Rec to promote our existing Greenway system, and just doing a lot of education around what Greenways are and how people can access them. People were spending a lot more time in their houses, so just providing another safe space for people to get outside and recreate, and knowing that a lot of our trails and commuter paths were, sometimes experiencing large crowds. So identifying these other community resources that are really easy to access just outside people's doors, and highlighting the ease of which you can use them. And so Ben had created mapped some routes throughout neighborhoods. So we put some maps together and promoted them, so different loops people could do within their neighborhood, just to get outside and get active, and being able to do so in a way that's safe and convenient. Oops. And then our neighborhood marketing, our individualized marketing program was also reformatted for 2020. So previously we had been doing some one-on-one engagement and focusing, our plan is to focus on a different neighborhood each spring with when we have our interns. So we're able to hire an intern this year. And so the idea is to kind of meet people where they're at, provide them with specific resources to help them access the transportation options available to them in their neighborhood, and kind of provide some hand-holding, have conversations about, if they do experience barriers to using sustainable transportation, how can we help them overcome those barriers, whether it's providing someone to kind of walk them through taking the bus for the first time, providing them with safety elements and safety resources and things like that. So this year, knowing that it wasn't going to be safe to be going door to door within a neighborhood, we instead decided to focus on people who had recently moved to a new residence. And we know that research has found that people's commute habits are more likely to be influenced to shift to sustainable modes in the months following the move. So, which makes sense. People haven't formed their habits yet, so they're not necessarily already in that habit of just hopping in their car for all of their trips. So it's a good time to influence those habits before they're created, and help educate people about the different transportation infrastructure in their new neighborhood. So we were able to target residents that had moved with a mailing, and then provide resources. We delivered those, and then we were able to follow up with people via mail, and then also via email and phone calls. So we did have some great conversations and provided that one-on-one guidance over the phone. And this was a really successful program, and so we've decided to continue it, and we're just starting our second mailing. We started it a couple of weeks ago, so we're hoping to continue to engage with people who have moved. We know a lot of people have moved to Missoula in the last few months, so wanting to capture that audience of people who may be new here and don't know about the different transportation options available. And we also took advantage of kind of the pause in some of our other in-person programming to revamp our online resources and some of our marketing materials. So we have our program specialist, Stacy, has really great graphic design skills. So we took full advantage of that, and we revamped our website. If you've been on it recently, you may have seen that it looks different than it did last year. And we also created a handful of videos to highlight some of the different construction projects that were completed in 2020. We worked with Ben on those. And so they highlighted the different projects, and then also provided a visual guide on how to navigate some of those both the new infrastructure that was added, and then also like the Higgins Avenue Bridge, so projects that are under construction. We provided a safe detour option and kind of displayed how to navigate that safely. We found that the videos are a great way are a great resource to provide, especially right now when we're not doing as much in person. So we're actually have another video in the works currently. We worked with Free Cycles to do some education around the different fix-it stations around town, those kind of stands that you see with the different bike tools. So just providing some education on how to use those tools and how to do some just basic bike maintenance on those, and also education around where in town those are located. So we have quite a few of them, and we'd like to see more community members using those. And then we always like to share some of our Commuters of Missoula, so our storytelling series, where we just highlight different individuals throughout the community who incorporate sustainable transportation into their daily lives and have really enjoyed the benefits of doing so. So we're always looking for more individuals to feature. So there's either shoot us an email if you know someone who might be good, or have someone in mind, or there's also a form on our website in the Commuters of Missoula section. So these are always some great stories to share. We try and really represent all different sustainable modes. Even this year we had a roller skater, we've done skateboarders. So really just not just the typical ways you think of getting around sustainably, but all of the different options. So that is kind of a brief overview of what we did last year. I mentioned some of the things we have upcoming for 2021. Other things to know, we have our Commuter Challenge. We did decide again to do it in the fall like we did last year. So we are thinking that by September, people will be back to their normal commutes in their offices. So we're hoping to really revamp that program and just engage with people, and think that people will be really excited to have a fun program, to competition, citywide competition, something to kind of bring the office together, and that it'll be kind of exciting to do that now that more people will be back in their offices and actually will be commuting more often. So that's something we have in store. We're also looking at partnering with the Office of Neighborhoods to do some, or possibly some, but potentially just one neighborhood open streets event. So working with neighborhoods to do Sunday streets, but more on a smaller scale within neighborhoods. And so that's something that we're looking at hopefully pulling off in August. So yeah, so we're excited for the programs we have in store for this upcoming year.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I love the moving the moving contacts about biking and walking for folks who are new to town. I remember when we first moved here, we got a packet from someone like welcome to town with coupons, and it just made me feel like I don't know, like the town was glad that we were here. But I feel like as far as getting something about like, look at all this amazing opportunity for walking and biking that you have, and getting that in the mail and trying to help you sort out your commuting choices is wonderful. I think it's a great program. Let's see. I read your report from last year, and one of the things that you highlighted was that only 30% of cyclists in Missoula are women. And I found that kind of shocking because I ride bikes with the dirt girls, and I've met the older than dirt girls, and I was like, what? How can that possibly be? And I wonder if you have any thoughts on that from this past year. And then the other thing that I've noticed in looking at real estate is a walking and biking score that some communities have. Bozeman has it. A lot of the real estate listings that I see from Missoula don't include that score. And so I was just wondering if you could respond to some of those comments.
Yeah, those are great comments. 30% women, I am guessing that comes from like a national survey that asks about commuting. So I don't think it touches on recreational riding. But it is low, but I think it's higher than the national average. So I feel like here in Missoula, we do have far more women that commute by bike. But it is still low. I agree. I think there's a lot of room for growth there. But yeah, I don't have any updated statistics on that. Ben, I don't know if you have anything to add.
We don't really, because we didn't do our count program last year. We didn't do our volunteer count. So the data that we have collected is since 2010, every year we've done counts in the spring and fall. Often Bike Ped board members help with those. They're 2 hours on a Tuesday and Saturday in May and in September. And we just are at various strategic intersections over town. We just count the people that bike or walk past us in that 2 hour. And we do our best to estimate sex of the person that walks by without being invasive. And our percentage is at about 35%, I think. So if that number is different in the MIM report, I'm not sure where that data might come from. But yeah, the national average is only about 20 to 25%. And so we're doing a lot better than that, but there's still a long way to go. And in the Netherlands, it's more than 50% women are bike riders. Make up their bike riding population. And so one of the, that comes back to making sure that we are creating facilities where everyone of all ages and all abilities not only are safe, but feel safe. And that is making sure that those two things are happening together is part of the challenge.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, I'm wondering, that number may have come from our individualized marketing program last year when we were reporting out on the data we collected from that. So that could have just been a snapshot of that neighborhood, but I'll have to go back and look. I'm trying to remember where we would have gotten that number from. And then your second point about biking and walking scores. Yeah, that's so I guess one thing I did want to mention, when we've been targeting Missoulians who have recently moved, we've also spent some time reaching out to the different both property managers and real estate agents with some of our resources for that we've used with this New Missoulians program. So we're trying to get them to kind of help us reach that population as well and provide those sorts of resources in the packets that they give when people move. We've had some success, so we've been able to partner with some real estate agents, but we're still trying to get those into more of their hands and just create more partnerships on that front. But yeah, I think that those biking and walking scores, I think they just pull those from some national websites. And so that's something that I think, yeah, could be integrated into the listings. I think often you see in the descriptions for listings, they always highlight if it's in an area that's close to a trail as a big selling point. So I think those are valuable things to know. But yeah, I mean, my guess is they just pull those from pre-existing national websites. I don't think they have any mechanism to calculate those locally. So I don't think it would be too hard to just incorporate those into the listings that are around town.
I mean, it does seem like it's the listing agent's choice because the spots are there in the listings. It's just zero. And so they could choose to do a walking and a biking score for each listing, but have chosen not to, or potentially don't know how to do the calculation. I'm not sure how to do it myself, but just seems like something that would be nice, especially since we have a neighbor not too far away who's doing it in Bozeman pretty consistently for their listings. And then I would just add that with the low number of cyclists, which surprised me, that are women in the counts, I would think that that should be included in programming decisions, like specific programming to try to increase the amount of women who are cycling for commuting. Sounds like recreational cycling, we don't know. But I mean, there are many, many women who are riding with the Dirt Girls and older than Dirt Girls, but I don't know what those numbers look like in that way. So anyone else? I got some hands up. Wait a minute. Okay, I wasn't paying that close of attention. So I see Britt. Britt has her hand up. Go ahead, Britt.
Okay, am I unmuted? I think that women, I remember hearing this somewhere that the reason women aren't biking and walking is because they don't feel safe. I think if we focus on safety of improving the facilities, I think the women and children and grandmothers will follow, because I remember seeing something, but it also rings true. Like women, we have a higher burden of childcare and even other non-child related community care things. So we're less likely to be using facilities that are dangerous, which the vast majority of the facilities actually are dangerous. And then we just kind of get accustomed to it and push through it and decide, yes, I'm a tough woman, I'll bike through this scary thing anyway. But it would actually be better if the facilities were safer, and then I think we'd have more parity across the board. And the other thing I wanted to mention from the presentation, but the more women than men lost their jobs during the pandemic. So it'll probably be a long time before we find out how that impacted walking and biking behavior and telecommuting and whatnot. But it's just something to kind of think about in the back of your mind. And also, I don't know if this happened right away, but there's a dramatic increase in the number of deliveries being executed by single occupant vehicle. Like people doing DoorDash, and they don't think anything of it. They're like, oh, I'm going to call Rumor and get a falafel and someone will bring it to my door. They don't realize that that's actually generating 2 single occupant vehicle trips, one in each direction from, to get the food and bring it to you. So I don't know if there's a way we can get that data from DoorDash, and I don't even know the names of all the services, but I imagine that there's a dramatic increase in the number of SOV miles that are being driven by delivery services right now. And those are people that tend to park in the bike lane because they're in a hurry, like especially on 5th and 6th. So anyway, it's just, I don't know what we can do about that, but it was just something that popped into my mind when we were watching the presentation.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Britt. I like that point.
Yeah, and I
Go
don't
ahead,
have much to add other than that. That's a really great point, and definitely a challenging one to tackle. Those organizations are hard to get through to. And yeah, I mean, possibly just trying to do some more education to individuals utilizing those services to just be more thoughtful in how they utilize those, and if they can, if they're going out for a trip anyways, if they can somehow, pick something up on the way home, and just or encouraging them to ride their bike to pick something up. And yeah, just encouraging people to be more thoughtful and educated, think about those impacts, because I think they're often overlooked.
And Britt, I like how you say that to improve the number of women cyclists, that we need to improve the facilities. I mean, I feel like that's a great point. So okay, Gene has his hand up. Go ahead, Gene.
Yeah, hi. Just quick on the one thing that Britt said, first of all, and then I got some questions for Catherine. Britt, first of all, nice to see you. You're not a disembodied telephone voice anymore. That's nice. the thing on safety, and this is all around the country, especially in urban areas, we think about safety of facilities. Obviously, lighting comes into place, although I think much of the year, actual commuting versus recreational is pretty much done not that close to dawn or dusk. But the other thing we have to work with around here is some of the even the trails like the Milwaukee Road and Bitterroot and everything. It can go by some areas that are relatively isolated. So unless you've got, I don't know what, security cameras or something, which people aren't in favor of, it is difficult to try to rein in at least the perceived risk. And I don't know if we have any, Ben, if you've got or anybody's got police reports of people being accosted on bikes, either for robberies or any other type of bike theft or any other kinds of things. So I'm not sure how much of, again, it might be something to go out and say, you may have this fear, and we're not trying to say there's no risk, but we don't have a history of it here. And also asking people if they've ever had anywhere, just like if they've had problems with drivers or certain intersections or something, to say, if there's certain areas on your commute or intended commute that you feel particularly at risk for, if they would report those, or anybody who has, been there and asked them for money or whatever, so we can find out what the riskier parts of any of our commuting routes may actually be. So I just wanted to put that out there. Catherine, I've got some sort of data-driven questions just came up as you're going through things. In terms of the sponsors that you have for the bike commute, you do so many trips, you get a free coffee or whatever. Excuse me.
And those are for any commute. So you can telecommute, you can ride the bus, you can carpool. It's not just biking. Right.
So in terms of when the staff goes out and gets the sponsors, does it require much of your time in terms of, people that sponsor once and say, oh, I don't think I'll do it again, and you try to come up with somebody else? Do you have a reliable group? Are there other sponsors you've tried to get and they just have been resistant, that, maybe somebody like me can go out and kind of strangle them and make them be a sponsor?
Well, yeah, I would say it does take up more time than you would think, because oftentimes it's difficult to get in touch with the person at the business that has the decision-making power to offer that sponsorship. And it can take several trips, in-person trips, beyond just phone calls, to track that person down and have that conversation, and then, hope that they say yes. So we're always, at this point, we have been doing this program for several years. So we do have, many that have returned and continued to offer in consecutive years. So that's been really helpful. But yeah, we'd love to chat more about that, Jean. If you did a great job with Bike Month, getting some sponsorships really quickly. And I think it's something that we're always really busy. And so it does take quite a bit of staff time. And we used to offer 2 every month and kind of gave people options. And then so far this year, we're just offering 1 because it has been more challenging. And we, with businesses just experiencing the unique challenges that they are right now, it's been harder for us to get as many sponsorships. So we're just doing 1 a month and being really flexible about, whatever they can offer. So I think a couple businesses just did like 25% off vouchers or even 10% off. And we're kind of just happy to take what we can get. And our goal is just to drive community members to support those businesses at this point. So
part of the reason I mentioned it is if, we've got a certain number of people here on the board, and it's obviously not our responsibilities to be your volunteer staff to do that. But I'm just mentioning if for everybody that's, on the meeting here, if you've got a favorite place that you go to, whether it's, El Cazador or Butterfly Herbs, or doesn't have to be someplace downtown, doesn't have to be food necessarily, Ace Hardware, who knows, that you do business with regularly, and you think that maybe they haven't heard from Missoula in Motion or don't know about it, and especially if you know anybody there that's in management, I say, my fellow board members, don't be afraid to contact one of your favorite local businesses and say, hey, how about doing a sponsorship for bike commuters like myself? Second question I have, I'll try to make this a little bit quicker. You mentioned that the really great thing you do is some of the materials you have for people that you'll have at curbside for them now, or the things like the lights and stuff like that. Is that part of your budget, or do you have, like, again, people who volunteer those materials and things?
Yeah, those safety materials are part of our budget, and the bike ped budget as well. So we purchase bike lights, and yeah, that's there. Yeah, most of the other resources are just print materials, like our bike maps, bikes on buses and bus maps and things like that. But the few physical items are, bike registration stickers, bike lights. Those things are part of our budget.
Okay. And finally, when you were doing the one-on-one connections, you said you provided guidance for, I forget, 54 people or something. Is in terms of in providing the guidance, do you have any people that come back and respond to you for follow-ups, or you do follow-ups for them and find out, are they actually doing their bus trips or bike trips, or
we're actually doing a survey right now. So the folks that we engaged with, it was kind of towards the end of the summer going into fall, since it was a new program, and it took a lot to get it set up and create the list and move everything to doing a mailing. So we got that program kind of up and running a little later than we expected. And so our thought was to do the survey now, kind of like moving into spring, because it's really hard seasonally. And we did surveys for the last individualized marketing neighborhood program as well. But it's tough to look at, if we talk to them about biking, and then, we see a decrease, if we survey them 2 months after the program, which is now like October, November, we see a decrease in biking. It's hard, we tend to, that it's probably attributed a lot to the weather. So we're trying to not do the surveys too long after the program, but also want to take into account that seasonality. So yeah, we're doing a survey right now just to kind of also just get feedback on what was most helpful from these resources that we provided. Do you have suggestions of how we can make this more helpful in the future? There's also some open-ended questions that we're hoping to get some good feedback about.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks. That's it for me right now. Thanks a lot, Kathy.
Thank you, guys. Okay, Jessica Doherty Goodburn has her hand up. Go ahead.
Cool. Familiar with the fixed stations, maybe I should be, but is that something with free cycles, or how long have they been up and where?
Yeah, well, there are several around town. I want to say there's like maybe 10 or 12, but we helped purchase quite a few of them, and then other agencies in Mountain Line, I think, has put up quite a few. So they're locations you might have seen them at the library. That one gets quite a bit of use. And then we helped put one outside the POV, and also just recently outside of St. Pat's. And so I think we've realized that a lot of people don't know that they exist and don't know where they are. And they're on the bike map, but the bike map has a lot of other information. So we thought it'd be really helpful to just create a map just showing where those are. And then also, just educating people about what are these tools and how can you use them. There's also one at the transfer station for Mountain Line, which you maybe have seen there. So you can put your bike on the little stand, and then there's just a number of different tools. There's also a couple of pumps where you can just air up your tire. And we helped install one of those outside of Homeward in the Solstice building, so that is on that new section of trail that goes under right by Russell Street. So we're trying to highlight that one now that that trail's open too. So yeah, we can share that with you
Thank you
guys.
so
when we have it
much.
out.
All right, I feel like in the interest of time, we probably need to move to the next agenda item. I think, Ben, that is the small grant opportunities.
Yeah, so thanks. My update, I'm going to keep it to that pretty much. Basically, I've been working on getting out the call for the RFP for the third Myrtle intersection for artists. That should be going out by the end of this week. Been working on plan review for projects out in the build grant area, working on the public works manual to get our standards more up to date and all in one place so that developers and city staff kind of all have one place to look for things. And then we just, as of today, got proposals back from consultants for the Higgins Bridge planning project. So our selection, we're meeting next Friday to work on selection. So we should have someone under contract within about a month or so, and look forward to kicking that project off at the board when the time comes.
Hang on one sec. Did you say Higgins Avenue?
Yes.
Okay. I thought I heard a Higgins Bridge, but I knew you meant Higgins Avenue. So
No. Okay. Yeah. Higgins Avenue from Broadway to Brook. So that does include the bridge section, but we're really looking at the sections on either side of the bridge. And so there was a request from our brainstorming session a couple months ago about things that the board wanted to see was for some small grant opportunities that board members might have an interest in running with. Typically, until you get over 50 grand, it's not worth city staff time to go after money, because it's more of a pain in the butt to administer it than it is, and it doesn't represent a huge contribution to the scale of at least hardscape infrastructure projects that we work on. But that being said, we've successfully applied for in the past several smaller grants, either as a pass-through for or in conjunction with and partnership with either the Bike Ped Board members or other nonprofit groups in town. And so specifically 3 that I'm aware of are People for Bikes has a grant program. And that about 20 years ago, one of their grants helped establish the North Side Greenway along the railroad tracks, that trail there. I believe that's the last one that we received from them, but that's one that comes up. America Walks has small grants, and I believe Missoula in Motion has successfully applied for those in the past to help with Sunday streets. Is that right?
I think it was Walk and Roll Week,
Okay.
but
and then AARP, which we're in the process of implementing a grant for the third Myrtle intersection. Again, that's sort of it's not quite a temporary project, and it's not quite a full-scale infrastructure project. And that one, we wrote the grant for what we thought we could get, within the realm of reasonable. And I think we're going to be butting right up against that dollar amount when it's all said and done. And so those are 3. Again, the People for Bikes is typically about $10,000. The AARP grants, I'm not sure that they have a dollar figure, but I feel like our 12.5 that we got from them was probably at the upper end. But I don't remember. Jessica, do you?
I don't think they have a limit, but yeah, it did kind of feel like that. Yeah, from a couple hundred to several thousand, I think is what they say.
Yeah. And then America Walks, that was probably $1,000 to $2,000. Does that sound right, Catherine?
I think it was 1,500.
Okay. So those are some small grant sources, and it's something that board members, if you have project ideas, if you want to review those, their websites all have information. If you have ideas for ways to help implement them, I'm happy to work with you on something like that and help make it successful. and my general advice is just to involve the neighborhoods early, and adjacent property owners. That's one of the reasons why we were so successful with Third and Myrtle, is that Jessica went to those neighbors and really got buy-in before we even applied, so that they knew what was coming and what we were trying to do. And it made, in that situation, it really made an event that might have been a bummer, i.e. the parking removal, into something positive that the neighbors were looking forward to, which is a redesigned intersection that's a people space. So yeah, I think that there are opportunities for collaboration. They're just typically not things that the city alone will spend time going after.
Thanks, Ben. It's always nice to have the history of what's worked in the past and what the options are. And Jessica Doherty-Gibbern has at least shown that she is skilled and enthusiastic for grant writing. And so I always like to, she's already won one. So the sky's the limit, right?
Yeah.
I did a quick Google search. I saw the People for Bikes 10K one opens in June, on June 14th. There's a Better Bike Share one, which was intriguing to me because, of course, that is an ongoing issue that this board discusses. And that one closes in October. And then there's one that I found very fascinating, which is a BIPOC adventure grant, where you propose a bike adventure for individuals who are BIPOC and Black, Indigenous people of color. And that one is in the fall. But I thought that was, just kind of a unique idea, proposing a bike adventure. So thank you so much for allowing the opportunity for people who are interested and have that writing skill to take advantage of that. I think that's great.
I also wanted to provide a couple updates on some larger grants that the city is applying for or will be applying for. One is a Fish, Wildlife, and Parks kind of trail maintenance grant that our Parks and Rec department applied for to do some seal coating on. I was unclear from the application if it was just the Grant Creek Trail or if it was all of our trails, primary commuter networks, but because one map showed them all, but one of the paragraphs really talked about the Grant Creek Trail. So I didn't get clarification from Parks on that, but that would go a long way to extending the pavement on those trails. The Recreational Trails program, which is also administered by state parks, I believe. And that a certain amount of money typically goes to motorized trails, snowmobiles and ATVs and things, but there's certainly money for non-motorized trails as well. And again, Parks typically applies as our applicant for that, and I'm not sure what they're planning for this coming round. FLAP, the Federal Lands Access Program, is a grant, and the last I heard is that the city and county were talking about an application for post-siding road for that to connect to federal land at Fort Missoula, so that the Bitterroot Trail could connect directly to the fort that way. And then finally, the kind of big dollar one is Transportation Alternatives Program. That call is not open yet. They said late February to mid-March that call will happen, so we expect it any day now. The window will be about 3 months that the grant will be open, and so our applications will be due in mid-June probably. And the city staff is already working together to put together, we think probably three, maybe 2 applications, and at various dollar figures. It's a statewide competitive grant. A quarter of it has to go to urban areas of greater than 5,000 people. A quarter of it has to go to rural areas of fewer than 5,000 people. And then the other 50% can be spent wherever the state deems most appropriate. It's a competitive process. There's 6.5 million statewide. And typically the largest grant available is $1 million or so that's been awarded. And so we're going to be looking at, in the past, we've unsuccessfully applied for South Avenue reconstruction, to money to contribute towards South Avenue reconstruction between Reserve and the Fort. money to light the entire trail system, money to develop the Kent Central Greenway, including crossings of the major arterials like at Brooks. And gee, those were the three in the last time that all got denied. We've successfully applied for, the RFBs across the Bitterroot Trail. Those were funded with TA money. And then the RFBs and raised crosswalk at Hellgate High School were paid for with TA money. And so, like I said, we're trying to put together some applications that are perhaps a little more straightforward and a little less risky for MDT to say yes to. And so what we've seen in other places is that sidewalk projects, it's pretty easy for MDT to say yes to those. And so we might try and fill some gaps in our Invest Health neighborhoods with a TA project. And we're still looking at South Avenue. We're further along in that design and right-of-way identification and risk identification. MDT calls them risks when they're unknowns about projects, such as location of utilities or right-of-way boundaries or things like that. And so we're just 2 years further along in the process of knowing that information. So we should be able to put together a stronger application this time for that one.
Those sound very exciting. We'll send all of our good vibes to the city's staff who are proposing and writing those grants.
Yeah, at some point once we're landed on what we're officially doing, I'll bring that to the board and show the app, share the application at a meeting and ask for a letter of support from the board probably.
I think the board would be happy to do that. All right, our new business. Well, no, actually, we have to go through the draft 2021 Public Works project list next, and I want to quickly do that so that we can spend more time on the bike month planning, because I'm sure that can take as long as we wanted to give it. So the draft project works list is attached to your agenda as a separate item. So if you want to click on that, you can see it. At least I think it is. See if I can get mine to pull up. Okay. So I wrote this after our last meeting where we discussed a lot of different public works projects, highlighting some high priority areas. And I ordered the recommendations based on what I thought were really important. They're all important, but the most important on down. I hope you guys have had time to look at that. The Mount Avenue project to me is one of the most important because it's again offering that commuter east-west pathway, and we have enough space to eliminate that turn lane and put bike lanes on both sides. Missoula Avenue is in the Rattlesnake Corridor. That's the main connection for biking and walking up there. The Rattlesnake Drive is that bulb out project. And I noticed Ben added several different options in there, depending upon what will work. Do you want to comment on all the different proposed changes to the Rattlesnake Drive bulb out?
Yeah, I do want to comment on those. So those are, I thought I had remembered us talking about those various options, especially with Bob G's help last time. And since staff has not had a chance to discuss this yet, I wanted to leave that pretty open. The other thing that I wanted to mention, which is really important to this discussion, is that Mount Avenue is currently been removed from the list. And so I don't know that we're going to discuss that one. Or I don't know that we're going to get to make any changes this year. And the reason for that is that there's water main replacement that's going to happen within 2 years. And so you don't want to redo the pavement just to rip it up again to do water main. And water can potentially pay for repaving the street after they're done doing stuff. So it saves the city a fair amount of money to coordinate. So the hooray for coordination, boo for a potential delay on that one.
Well, that's
and then,
understandable.
and then
Britt,
finally, staff, we have an internal meeting on the 11th to really kind of hash out some of the discussion item ones that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet. And the main one there that will be that we're going to probably go around and around on is 3rd Street between Russell and Orange, and what we want to do there, and what we're going to propose. So that's one that will be, if there's any advice from the board, any more advice from the board on that one, that will help staff discussion. Specifically, I'm thinking of the narrow section between Walnut and Orange where there aren't currently bike lanes.
okay, so that one isn't on the list.
It is. It just it's not in green because it didn't get prioritized at last month, and it didn't. We didn't have too much new on that one.
Okay, so Mount will go away, and then we should definitely add that section. We've had a lot of board discussion about that section in past meetings. I remember, James, you suggested that there be a shared use path potentially because there's enough right of way by the sidewalk on 3rd Street in that area that you could make it a super wide shared use path. And other board members felt very strongly that on-street parking should be eliminated and that bike lanes should be placed on both ways of travel. That's what I remember as being the 2 main discussion points. So jump in here, anybody who wants to give their thoughts. Gene's got his hand
up. Yeah, one of the things when you look at the on-street, saying on the same grade bike lane like we have in so many places versus a cycle track, which is off the street. So you've got, in my mind at least, or other people I've talked to, kind of competing issues or considerations. People who are on the bike lanes sometimes say, well, I still feel nervous because I know there's a car driving right next to me and there's no physical separation. I'm not up like I would be on a sidewalk, which is part of the reason people maybe tend to ride on sidewalks. So there is that. So people say, I'd like to get completely away from any car potential if I can. So those are the people that say, yeah, let's go with the cycle track. One of the issues with the cycle track, unless you have a really good intersection infrastructure, is that there is a tendency, again, just like with sidewalk riders, when you get to a street crossing, not everybody does their best job of stopping and checking for traffic, and cars that are turning typically are not trained or have a mindset that there's going to be somebody coming off of this cycle track into their pathway as they're making a turn. So with the bike lane, we have the people concerned about people passing too close or getting hit from behind, which is statistically a very rare occurrence. And then on the cycle track side, we have to worry about the right turn issues or even left turn issues of people crossing where a motorist doesn't have a mindset of somebody might be coming into that their turning pathway at bicycling speeds. So I know there's certain ways of dealing with that in terms of bike-friendly intersections. They are expensive. So those are just a couple things to keep in mind as we look to which way we might want to go on 3rd Street.
Thanks, Jean. I think that you presented the pros and cons of the 2 ideas really nicely. In the interest of time, perhaps what we could do is just do a show of hands, just like a snap judgment, who likes the idea of the on-street bike lanes and the elimination of parking. I kind of do. Yeah. All right. So, I mean, that's basically a majority of the board. I think that the problems of having a shared use cycle track are real, and riding on sidewalks, the visibility is poor. Chris has his hand up. Go ahead, Chris, a brief comment. Chris, can you hear me? You're muted. If you're talking, we can't hear you.
Perhaps he was raising his hand when you asked for a show of hands.
Oh, well, there, baby. Okay, well, I don't know, Chris, I can't hear you. Britt's got her hand up. Go ahead, Britt.
Oh, you're muted too now, Britt.
I was going to vote for both. So there's my vote for both.
I mean, Ben, it's a complex issue. It feels like, if we could wave our magic wands, that the parking could be gone and there could be on-street cycle paths, but is the neighborhood, how is that going to be received in the neighborhood? And I think the important thing is that there's something there. Anyone have any other follow-up comments? Not sure that that's helped a ton, but I do think we have consensus. Jessica, you want to have a comment?
Yeah, well, I totally understood last year when we were saying that it didn't necessarily make sense to do anything there, because I know coming from the other side of Orange where I live, it's really easy to get on the bike path or easy to get on Fifth and go that direction. But I do think that there's something, it almost functions, you always see people out on Third, that stretch of Third, and then there's the bike path, and it's almost like a greenway in the way that people use it. And so I think that I've maybe come more to the side of we need something more pedestrian and bike friendly on that road. Otherwise, it ends up being more of a car thoroughfare, which is how I always thought of it growing up. And so I think we should kind of move that direction. So either of those options.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. It does feel like a greenway. There are a lot of cyclists on 3rd Street. I cycled it for my commute for work over, to the west side of town, and different times of the day. So I know that people are riding on it, and it has high volume of traffic. And so I think that the board would support bike lanes in both directions. Jean, you want to have a follow-up comment really quickly?
Yeah, just real quick. I was just curious as to, maybe Ben has something. I know we haven't done the surveys, but in terms of the improved lanes, the buffered lanes on 5th and 6th, being relatively close to 3rd, if that hasn't pulled some of the bike traffic or anticipated traffic off of that, and maybe lessen the heightened anticipation or desire or need for adding that onto 3rd Street, in terms of prioritization, in terms of what we're spending, et cetera.
I don't have any numbers like that. All I've heard is that 5th and 6th have made riding more comfortable for people who were riding and tolerable for people who weren't. And I've not, and that's just been anecdotal evidence, phone calls and emails I've received and what I've observed with more families out there. I don't have any way of knowing if it's pulled any traffic from 3rd Street.
Okay, there's a lot of hands up. Britt, is your hand up newly?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I bike and walk that intersection almost all the time. And ever since I moved here, I just don't understand why it is the way it is. And it just seems grossly unfair to preserve a few parking spots for a building. There's a big building there and it needs parking, but I don't see why that has to be the whole city's problem, that one building needs some parking on the street. If you live in the neighborhood, that's your light. That's the way to get across Orange. You can go to the tunnel. That can be pretty far out of your way. You can also go to Fifth. That can also be pretty far out of your way. I think this stoplight is essential, especially for pedestrians, and something has to be done. It's just kind of an embarrassment. It's even on our bike map. It's just kind of hard to get through for everybody, I feel like.
Thanks, Britt. Jessica, did you have a follow-up?
Which intersection was she talking about? The one where you
Orange and Third.
Orange and Third, right?
I
Okay.
think.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about the ends of that stretch, especially that transition from the Bitterroot Trail to Russell is pretty rough, and that makes it pretty hard to connect over across Russell. And then the I mean, that's kind of the best place to cross Orange, but it's not great. So if we didn't do anything in the middle, I wonder about options at either end.
And now the new international school is on Third in that section. So you're going to have a lot of kids biking on that road and coming and going, flowing, more traffic of all kinds, more pedestrians, more bikes. And so that perhaps lends even more strength to the idea of the on-street bike lanes. Was that helpful, Ben? As far as the letter, I'm happy to redo it, eliminate Mount, add the Third Avenue recommendation. Is that something for next time that will be a motion that we will need to make?
It will be. And so, Jesse, what I want to do is I'm going to get in touch with you after that meeting that I have internally with staff, just to let you know which projects are are still on the table for this year. And again, that's subject to change up until they do them, but we have a reasonable assumption that they're happening. And then it sounds like you have enough guidance to add board comments to those, and then we'll work together to get that posted for next month's agenda in advance so that people can read it ahead of time and then vote on it. What we want to avoid is wordsmithing in the meeting, but we also can't have a ton of discussion back and forth. So I think that you and I will likely do some wordsmithing back and forth by email, Jesse, but
Okay.
It seems like there's a good general consensus from the board about where you're going with your recommendations. And if there's anything, what we should maybe do is have a placeholder replacement language for some of them if there comes to be significant disagreement at the next one.
Okay.
Such as, board did not unanimously agree to one specific treatment. However, bicycle and pedestrian safety and accessibility should be considered. Some sort of blanket statement if we can't get to consensus on what those specific recommendations are.
Sounds good. All right. The next agenda item is Bike Month planning. Bike Month is in May. This is a big one. And so there's an attachment that I made with community bike allies and potential calendar ideas for Bike Month. Many people who are at this meeting have lots more experience with the Bike Month than I do. I know one of the big things that's been very popular are the breakfasts that are sponsored by community bike allies. And other ideas I had were some tours on bikes, instruction, bike maintenance, contests, different levels of the community, adult and at the under 18 level, and then just who to engage to help us out. And so I had questions initially about how many breakfasts are there. In my mind, I thought one a week sounds pretty good. Is that what's been historically done?
Yes.
Catherine.
Yeah, I'm curious, what is community bike allies? Is that?
Oh no, that's just my word for the people that we might
was like
ask.
an established group. Okay,
Those
I
are
was
my
like,
words
cool.
for people who could help us.
That should be a group. The way you're referring to it sounded like a group, but yeah, we would do the breakfasts every Friday in May.
Okay. And so the two nonprofits that I have contact with and I'm happy to ask to sponsor a breakfast are Trees for Missoula, which plants trees and helps out parks all the time. And what was my second one? Ford, Montana. They can register voters while they give them breakfast. So I'm happy to reach out to them. I volunteer with them. I have contacts there. That covers hopefully 2 of the weeks. I have some other names up there. Does anyone else have any close relationships with nonprofits they'd be happy to ask? Britt.
I participated in the event in the fall called Miles for Music for the Montana Area Music Association, and I wonder if maybe I could approach them about getting some live music at the breakfast, if anybody would be interested in that. Worth a shot.
Yeah. Love that. Okay, so live music, that would be cool. I also wondered about the location since the Higgins Bridge is under construction. That's where they usually are, right? Higgins Bridge? No. James is shaking his head. I can't tell.
It would be,
go ahead. You go, Catherine.
Well, we would just rotate locations, but we liked to highlight the bridges just because that's where people tend to funnel. So there is often high ridership, but we would do California Street Bridge, Madison Street Bridge, Russell Street Underpass is a good spot, but sometimes we would do the Northside Ped Bridge, but they kind of varied every year. So yeah, kind of just places that we thought would be high traffic.
Okay, so maybe no Higgins Bridge this year. But the other ones sound good. Anyone else have nonprofits that they would be willing to contact? There's a list up there. I mean, Pedal Missoula, Aging Services, Chamber of Commerce, Clark Fork Coalition. We could go with some of our, sustainable partners like Climate Smart Missoula. They could tell a little bit about what they're doing. Catherine, go ahead.
Thanks. So yeah, those are great ideas. We'd be happy to provide a list of contacts of those who've done it before. You mentioned Climate Smart Missoula. That's an organization that's hosted one before. The Montana Natural History Center has done one right at the Orange Street Tunnel, because that's another good location, and they're located right close to that. So if you would like, we can provide those contacts, make it a little easier for who's ever contacting them, or give you some ideas.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so if we could get Climate Smart Missoula, Natural History Center, and the two that I have, we got the month. So that would be huge, right? Because those are really beloved parts of it. Outside of that, I noticed there was a haiku poetry contest, which I love. And when I used to do Safe Routes to School, we used to have an art contest, which I also loved, which was for kids. Our librarians are some of the best partners at getting out the word that I know of. The librarians will change the entire library to be a bicycling library scenario. So if you are someone who loves the library or has a connection there, I think that would be a really easy one contact way to get people on board with promoting it to kids. Catherine, you have another comment?
No, sorry, I just didn't put my hand down.
That's okay. Go ahead, Jean.
Sorry.
Yeah, Jesse, thanks. In terms of the bike, yeah, I did the haiku thing. It worked out pretty good. I was able to get 3 or 4 sponsors actually, and so I can appreciate Catherine's issue of trying to get sponsors. It does take a little bit of time and telephone and texting and whatnot. I think something in terms of bike art might be interesting to do, either as a contest or just, maybe different communities around some of the greenways, maybe have a place at Free Cycles or maybe down in Karis Park. I don't know how much it costs to set up something at Karis Park, or maybe at the library, the new location, to have people bring their bicycle art projects to show the public on let's say on a Saturday morning when people maybe are in the downtown area I'm assuming we're going to at some point have the street vendors again for farmers markets. So in terms of people saying, here's what they're doing, watercolor or sculpture or whatever, just to kind of bring community art related to bicycling to a place where people can look at it and appreciate it. And who knows, maybe even buy it. I don't know. So that was one thing. And as long as I got the microphone here for a second, a couple other things. I talked to Bob G about this a couple times, not recently. There's a growing popularity, especially in urban areas, about what they call a slow roll, ROLL ride, where you have something where people are dedicated to just really cruising, maybe 8 to 10 miles an hour, very leisurely, in terms of ways to make the bicycling more communal, I guess, than recreational. Also, maybe something like that would be a nice way to highlight and introduce people to the different greenways that we have around town. So maybe doing slow rolls through the neighborhoods might be something we could schedule for Bike Week, and then recruit volunteers to meet and greet and lead those. And the other thing I talked about, and this was more sort of for a fundraiser, and they do this for runners and stuff, walking routes, is to have a poker ride where you have a route, and you could do it during the day instead of a mass start or something because of social distancing. People go on a route, and every so often 5 different spots they pick up a random, from somebody who's there to give it to them, a random playing card, and then at the end they turn in their poker hand, and then at the end of the event you look through and see who had the best poker hands, and there's prizes for that. And they're generally, if it's a fundraiser, you generally have a entrance fee for individuals or families or whatever to do this. So I thought, given the number of trails and such that we have, it might be the kind of thing that would work out nicely for bicycling. So those are just my suggestions regarding a couple possible events.
Well, that sounds great. I think I've never been on a poker ride, but it sounds like something that would be fun to do. I think the challenges of the art contest are, the COVID related challenges. I mean, some people are not going to be comfortable, submitting art, or I don't know, we would have to work with that. It's since you have experience with the poetry competition, is that something, Jean, that you would be interested in doing? Would be putting out a call for bike related art and poetry? Oh wait, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll definitely do the haiku again. I can probably get at least 2, maybe 3 of the same sponsors I had last time. So the woman at the Missoulian really enjoyed it. So that for sure. In terms of the art thing, that I'm not super familiar with in terms of, there's plenty of artists around town. In terms of the COVID aspect, if we were doing displays in an outdoor area like library parking lot, setting some of their parking up, or maybe someplace like by the old Lucky's Market, where right now they've got plenty of parking spaces that aren't being used because the new sporting place isn't coming in, I don't think, until this fall. So that might be things where we can have outdoors and not too worried about distancing. Then it's just a matter of kind of putting out a call and having some like folding display tables or something that we can get from somewhere to put out.
Hold on one sec. Catherine wants to comment. Go ahead, Catherine.
Sorry, Jean can finish. I just wanted to get in line for a comment.
Oh, okay. I thought you had an idea on that.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I just worry. I think it needs to be someplace with existing infrastructure in a normal time. I think the library would be that place. In a not normal time that we're in, I feel like the challenges are many to get that started. It doesn't mean that we can't ask the schools to celebrate Bike Month, and they can have their bike art all over the schools and that kind of thing.
Mm.
But as far as community wide, I don't know. Does anybody else have any ideas? it's just a hard time right now.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't want to commit to really doing much. Again, I'd like to do one of this bike safety best practices webinars. Worked out pretty well last year that I did. So in terms of working on that and the haiku and hopefully being supportive of a poker ride, I don't think I want to try to cut off more than I can chew.
I think that sounds like a lot. Thank you so much. Would anybody be interested in contacting the neighborhood councils about organizing a slow roll for their neighborhood, potentially highlighting their neighborhood greenway? So that would just be a quick, you join their virtual Zoom, you let them know May is bike month, that you're from the bike board. What is the slow roll? Tell them that it's the opposite of a race. It's just a leisurely, socially distanced ride through a neighborhood. Does anyone have the availability to do that, or interest, I should say? I mean, the other people besides neighborhood councils that I could think of that might organize something like that would be local bike shops. Because again, that's sort of their business, right? So the more people that get out riding and contacting them, the better off they're going to be. Let's see. The other ideas I had were they do tree tours because UM is an arboretum. And so I know that they have some tours that they give, and biking to see the trees would be one thing to do. So contacting the UM Arboretum is on the list. Okay, Catherine, your hand's up and go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks. Sorry for the confusion. I just thought maybe
Oh,
there was
that's
a
okay.
few people. So I just want to share a couple of thoughts that we had, or opportunities that came through that we wanted to pass along. There is a kind of a traveling film festival called Film by Bike, where they put out different bike-focused films every year. I believe when Untitled Missoula hosted Bike Month, they did a couple of showings at the Roxy, and it seemed like it was really successful. So they reached out to us, letting us know that they're doing a virtual film festival this year. And so that could be a cool thing. There was a fee associated with being able to show it, but we thought maybe it would be an opportunity to get the bike shops involved in a sponsorship to cover that cost and make it free for the community to watch those bikes during like a certain week in May or something. Or even the Roxy, and reaching out to the Roxy and seeing if they'd like to do something around it. I know they're looking for opportunities. So those films are pretty cool and worth sharing. And that might be a fun thing to do around Bike Month that people can do at home. So we can provide more info with that, or if we wanted to, we could help you navigate that too at a follow-up meeting. So that was one. And then also, we work closely with Mountain Line, and Shanti Johnson is the outreach coordinator there. And she is willing to be involved in Bike Month. And one thing that we've done in the past when we used to host Bike Month is educating people about how to put their bikes on the bus. They have a bus rack that they can just show up with. It's not attached to a bus, it's just a mobile one. So if there are breakfasts happening, it might be good to feature that at one of the breakfasts. It's really helpful to learn to do that when you're not in front of a bus full of people. I can speak for myself. It's really nice to do it in a low stress situation and have someone talk you through it. So yeah, she said she'd be more than willing to show up with that at an event or at a breakfast or something. So I can put you in touch with her too, but just keep her in mind. I think that linking bikes and buses is always a really good thing to do. And then we at Missoula Motion, would love to work with Jean again to promote that bike safety webinar that was really successful. We are also just talking about doing some sort of challenge within Way to Go to just encourage people to get out and ride during the month of May and have some sort of incentive for people who either do a certain amount of bike trips or kind of just trying to think of something creative to get people out riding, and then a way to engage with them virtually and provide some incentives. So those are just some of our updates and ideas that wanted to pass along to you.
I want to chime in too and just state that, Catherine and I and the MIM staff can likely be available with advance notice to help with events and things like that. But where we really struggle and participation ourselves is in this planning phases. And so if you can help get things in order, we can certainly help them run smoothly when the time comes. We just, certainly my time is, I'm just too busy to be able to do a lot of the kind of legwork and coordination in advance of this. And so we've always talked about what we need from other people is to coordinate the breakfast and create a calendar that we can then share. And so
what calendar platform do you use?
Usually it's been like a visual, a graphic, someone, you know, we've had artists design them, and it's something that we've then posted online. We've even printed them out and posted them around town before. It's always great to get things up on MissoulaEvents.net as well. And we've even experimented with getting like a special bike month module added onto that. I don't know that it's worked super well in the past, but that's certainly an opportunity. But you know, really a physical calendar, one piece of paper with a stylized calendar that lists when the events are happening is what we've typically done.
Okay. And then is there money available for printing that calendar?
Yeah, we could certainly make some. You know, we can't do thousands and thousands of them, but we could print 100 calendars really easily, or more, if there are places that you want to hang them up.
And last year we did more of a virtual calendar too, since people weren't out and about, and that works pretty well too. So just sharing it.
Okay. And then, I mean, I've Googled like all different kinds of online calendar platforms. When you did the virtual calendar last year, what did you use?
We had a graphic designer kind of make it really look really visually good as we would have a print one. And then just so it looked nice and was easy to share on social media, and we had it posted on a web page as well.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And then the final thing is some people do historical tours by bike. And so the Historical Society here in Missoula, if anyone is a history buff or knows anyone from the Historical Society that they would feel comfortable contacting about that, that would be another type of ride that could be done. So that's another thought. Trees, historical buildings. I mean, University of Montana, we'll see how they feel about all this, but.
I've led a ride before that was combo trees and public art.
Yeah.
And I have that route if anyone wants to kind of do that again.
And if you're doing that one again, there's a mural going up at the transfer center that's sustainable transportation focused. So that would be a nice addition of a new piece of public art. It's being installed in April, so it'll be done in May.
Oh, great.
Okay. Okay, Britt.
I was just thinking about the slow roll, and my first thought was, I don't want to catch COVID slow rolling with a bunch of people. What about a virtual slow roll? I mean, is it too soon to be trying to congregate people in person? I'm not going to have a chance at vaccination before then, so I don't know how representative my views are, but I am trying to avoid congregate settings, and so it was just kind of swirling in my head. Like, I think we have to want to do this, but not too much participation in real life, or maybe spread it out better, like temporarily over time. But yeah, I kind of would prefer to not be pushing the envelope regarding spreading stuff.
With the exception of the pedal-palooza rides bike-a-palooza rides at Sunday Streets, I've never seen a group ride with more than a dozen people. And I think that if we would, especially if it's city promoted, we would certainly be following all current health department guidelines. Masks would probably be required. That being said, I just got a news flash on my screen that Biden just said that there's tons of new doses available, and that he's now committed to all adults being vaccinated by the end of May. So
Well,
I
that's
think
good
there's
news.
potentially good news on the horizon, and I think we would follow COVID protocols on any event, and of course everything is up to each individual's discretion and level of comfort, and we wouldn't want to add undue pressure to participate in something that made someone uncomfortable or
I mean, the
increase
nice thing
or
about a
increased
slow
risk.
roll, the slow roll, you don't have to start all at once. I mean, you could have the route published and then people can just sort of, if there got to be too many people, more than 10 people, you'd be like, oh, go ahead, start, just
Mhm.
go ahead. And more people come, we'll just go ahead and start them and then they can just go roll away and stuff like that. But I do think that some people are probably not going to be ready.
One of the nice things about biking too is that unlike in the Netherlands, people here stay way far away from each other when they're biking.
Very true.
They're not right up on each other's handlebars for the most part.
Very true. At the breakfast, what do people typically provide?
It's usually like pastries, things that you can just grab and go. We obtain permits from the health department, and that going through that process certainly limits the types of foods you can serve. You can't serve anything hot. So yeah, something that someone can just grab and take with them to go. And then we've been able to get donations from the different bakeries around town, have been really generous, so that's worked out. And then we also have coffee.
And then how many people do you anticipate at each or plan for at each breakfast?
I think we usually say around like 60. We've definitely had more people at certain like downtown locations, like up to 100 would be the most. But yeah, so I think something like 6 dozen is typically our ask. So maybe like 75 people down there.
And
That's great.
again, that is the typical interaction is someone comes up, says hi, pours themselves a coffee, we hand them a treat. We say, hey, thanks for commuting sustainably. Do you have any questions about getting around? And they say, nope, I'm late for work. And then they go.
Yeah, and certain locations are definitely lower than others. And if there are still fewer people commuting to work, I would anticipate lower numbers. People are still working from home.
Right. All right, Jessica, go ahead.
I think that mostly answers my question, but it sounds like we're good to go on the breakfast this year. Last year, I think we didn't do any, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, I just wanted to say, I have the microphone. I am not interested, but I'm expecting a baby in the next 2 weeks or so. So the timing works out that planning may be hard, but I'm also, not interested, I guess I'll say, in either helping with the breakfast or something,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Jean.
Yeah, on the slow roll thing, there's one in terms of what Britt was saying about, being close and all. There might be a possibility. I don't have the technology expertise, but I've seen videos of people using their smartphones and they're on a road and sometimes you're using it to show stuff like how closely people are passing them or just the route they take to work or whatever. So it might be something where, somebody could go out, a member from the board or anybody knows that's got a, thing where they can hook up their smartphone or a GoPro or something and then give a commentary as they go on the Greenway or for the different neighborhood greenways to help introduce them that way. And then that's something we can just say, hey, during bike month, go here and check out this YouTube video or post it on the Missoula in Motion Facebook page, something to that extent. So that's another possibility in terms of giving ideas for people to do a slow roll on the Greenway at their own leisure time and comfort.
Thanks, Jane. Anyone else have other ideas or things that you think we missed from prior months? Since I've not always participated in all of it, I just went with what I could remember, but I'm sure there are things that I've forgotten. Has there ever been a relationship with the groups that do rides together to lead rides during Bike Month, like Dirt Girls or Pedal Missoula or?
Yeah, we've certainly, I don't know about those specific groups, but yeah, in years past, I mean, when Pedal Missoula hosted it, they did a number of rides and they were great. I believe that was 2 years ago, but yeah, we always reach out to the different groups, local groups, and encourage them to promote their rides on our calendar and encourage them to plan something for Bike Month. So Missoulians or bicycles, which is now called Bike Missoula, maybe Missoula Bike Club, I think it's been rebranded. They typically do quite a few rides too for Bike Month, and Women Bike Missoula are other groups.
Okay. As far as just thinking about, people who are currently offering rides, but then they would just be highlighted during the Bike Month. What about Parks and Rec? I know we discussed that their programming is done so far in advance that it would be nearly impossible for them to include new programming for Bike Month.
Yeah, we haven't done a ton with them. I know that they 2 years ago when Pedal Missoula hosted it, when they did the Filmed by Bike show at the Roxy, they had one that was focused on like family commuting and parents with young kids that commute. And I believe they worked with the Derailers, which is a program within Parks and Rec, to do a family ride to the Roxy. And I wasn't able to attend it, but I think it was pretty successful.
Okay. All right. Looking at my list to see anything else. One of the things that was on there was just bike maintenance instruction. So has that been, what community partners have been engaged with that?
I'm trying to think of what we've done in the past. We typically look to Free Cycles. They're such a great resource for that. And actually we talked about maybe doing some pop-up clinics this spring, just especially around those fix-it stations. So that'd be something we'd be happy to partner with you guys on, or kind of take the lead on. So and Free Cycles has said they'd be open to that. So having kind of just a time where there's someone there to kind of help you navigate those fix-it stations and show you, kind of do a little tutorial that people can come in and view, and even do some hands-on maintenance on their bike. So that could be a good opportunity.
And do you think that that is a best accomplished on the weekend kind of gig, because people are off and people might have time?
We talked about doing, yeah, it's hard to know because we haven't done something quite like that before. During the commute times, people often don't have time to stop, but might have time to stop during those commute hours. We talked about doing kind of targeting downtown employers and doing one like over a lunch hour, especially like the new bike fix-it station that's at the hospital. They want to partner with us and do something for their employees. So yeah, maybe finding some places with high volumes of employees that would be close by, like even doing something by the Homeward one, or the one at the transfer center, and just, yeah, reaching out, advertising it to downtown employees and doing it over the lunch hour could work out well too.
Well, I think that's a great idea. Has the University of Montana been involved in Bike Month activities?
Not typically, because May is pretty challenging time to do programming with finals and graduation. So it hasn't been a great time. And yeah, students are kind of on their way out. Faculty and staff are really busy. So just because of the timing, I think they do some social media and maybe they've done a couple things, but their presence has been limited just because it's not very compatible with the university schedule.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, it's not the right time for them. Have you guys ever heard of the Goose Chase app?
Mm-mm.
It's like an app that's a scavenger hunt. So a lot of college campuses use it. For people who visit the college, they'll have a goose chase. I'm sure there are other ones, but it's one. A goose chase app is where, they set it up so that you have clues and you're sent all around the campus to find certain things. And I think, it's the potential for it to be used on a bicycle is like an interesting thought, that you would have an app and it's, I don't want to say it's like Pokemon Go, but I mean, you would like have something that you're looking for. And then when you got there, you would know it. And then you would, move through the goose chase. And that would be on your own time, socially distanced. Just people have them, for campuses, cities, places that you visit, things like that. And then has the city ever used the Eventbrite websites for coordinating events? A lot of people who do event planning like this use Eventbrite and have a calendar, and then they link all the events through Eventbrite. I've definitely used it when I've been visiting places.
We haven't, to my knowledge. We have always worked with the Missoula events, but it sounds like it could be a great resource.
It's just, are there any folks on this committee who have graphic design skills who can design the calendar? Because I like to play around with graphic design, but I've never designed a calendar. And maybe going with some online platform where the calendar is really easy to build and quick. We can just plug things in. Might be the way to go. What do people think we should aim for events each week besides just the breakfast? And I'm like, in a given week, what would you like to see? One breakfast, and then what else in each of the 4 weeks?
To me, one breakfast plus one ride plus one other type of event would be a really ambitious bike month.
So one ride, one breakfast. What did you say? One class?
And then one other type of event, whether it's a class or a film festival or a tour or something like that.
Okay. All right. What do you guys think about that? Does that seem right-sized? Everybody's very quiet. Jessica, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that fills out the calendar pretty well. And then if we did do the haiku contest or an art contest or anything like that, then that kind of helps to flesh out the rest of the month. The unscheduled events, which is kind of what ended up happening last year. I feel like we were making, I don't know, Catherine, if you felt like this worked or if you would do this differently, but we were dividing like the scheduled events versus the non-scheduled, just because it was hard to schedule.
There was a lot of information.
COVID. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good plan. I had another different thought. Oh, as far as city resources go for the art idea. So some people will have a call for art and you submit the art to be displayed, and then the city has a place that is going to display the art. So they'll have like an under 18 display area, and sometimes it'll be like in the city hall, in Currents. I'm just throwing ideas out. I don't really know where we could do it, but maybe you guys would know. So if we went with an art contest, what are the venues the city has for displaying the art?
So Jessica, is what I'm hearing you say is if we were doing a art thing where the artist would drop something off at a location, and then the city staff would have set up a venue on a certain date and time period to bring those art pieces out and display them. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Or just have them out all the time during bike month, so the pieces would be received prior to bike month and then they would be displayed during bike month.
Well, if they're displayed, they need to be guarded. So you just, so I think that, I don't know. I mean, if it's an outdoor thing, obviously, you'd have to have somebody supervising it so nobody decides to vandalize something or whatever. Because we were worried about the indoors in terms of COVID still.
It's just, I love the idea of it. I mean, I'm not worried about the school age people, because the schools display art constantly all over the schools, and they would be happy to have bike art around their schools, and the librarians would put bicycling books out, and it'll be great. But for the over 18 community, I don't know what the equivalent is if the public library is closed for people to come inside. Has anybody heard, is that going to change at all in the current?
I haven't been in contact with anybody at the library for a long time, other than, asking for books to check out and pick up. So I don't know.
Yeah, we've been in touch with them, and they haven't been able to provide any real information about opening dates, unfortunately.
They're not anticipating when they might open up indoors?
Not yet, not that we've heard.
Okay.
It's not the staff we've talked to. And yeah, I love that idea of having it displayed somewhere. In terms of city venues, there's none that I'm aware of. You could ask Ginny Miriam, we could give you her information, but I know like City Hall, we have in our office, we have art. We have a partnership with the art museum, and there's often rotating art in City Hall, and I think it's maybe a partnership with the university, but it seems like they're already kind of partnerships set up to rotate art in those locations. And I don't know about other city venues, so.
I'll check with Adventure Cycling, because they have some, obviously there's that whole outdoor space there by the MAM. And so that would be an obvious place to display. They have some outdoor spaces that are within a fenced compound that might be amenable to that. I know their inside space is quite crowded as far as I recollect. They do have or they used to at least, have a fairly large classroom type of setting that's totally indoors. Then they have a little courtyard that might work out well too. So I will try to check with them the next few days and get back to you, Catherine.
I think that's a great idea. I think Adventure Cycling seems like the obvious choice. I mean, the art museum also seems like an obvious choice. I'm not sure what their status is. I have not been into the museum since COVID started, so I'm not sure. Does anyone know if they're open or?
I don't know if they're open yet.
Yeah, it's just a hard time, isn't it? So, but they have windows, as does Adventure Cycling. So if there were displays in their windows during Bike Month of bike-related art, then maybe that's the best we can do. And just like you go window shopping sometimes, maybe you just go window art gazing. So anyway, I think that I would like the art thing to happen. I think that would be fun, but just have to work on that a little bit more. Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's like we got some framework. We just got to get some of the nuts and bolts kind of put into place. So Catherine, if you can send me the contacts that you have, that would be great. I'm happy to call a whole bunch of people. And the first thing I'm going to do is get the breakfast situation set up. And then the second thing I'll do is the other related rides and events.
Thanks for taking the lead on this, Jessica. Jess. Yeah, I'll be happy to send you that stuff. It'll probably be Thursday if that's okay. And we also have some packets. So since we had so many partner organizations host breakfasts, we have essentially a guide of all the steps you need to take and best practices and information. So yeah, I'll pass that along, and then you can share that with the volunteer hosts if interested.
That's awesome. Yeah, that would be great. I think it'll in the COVID era, it'll be as good as we can make it, you know. So I think it's a fun month, and I've always enjoyed it. And even, you know, when my son was little, and it's just part of our community. I love it. I love Bike Month. I went to that film festival, by the way, and absolutely loved it. I would recommend that we do that. I thought the films about biking were amazing. They had people who did the Continental Divide and people who've done all kinds of things, and it was really fun to watch the stories. So I think we have at least the bones of a plan. All right, let's flip back to the agenda. Announcements. Any new announcements for next time that board members would like to make? All right, our next meeting is April 6th at 3 p.m. via Zoom. And I am, barring any other comments, I'm ready to adjourn the meeting and then look forward to hearing from you guys. I really appreciate each of you guys taking time out of your day to help make our bike city the best it can be.
I hope we can see a little tiny baby at that meeting in April.
I know. That would be awesome. Yeah. All right. Thanks, you guys. I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 4:55. Take care. Be safe out there.
Bye-bye.